It is the 33rd week in Ordinary Time, the second to last week of the church's year, and this is Extraordinary. So, big week this week, lots of things to think about, and our word of the week is worship. What a perfect word this week, 'cause there's lots of different examples of the ways in which we can and should worship. I think sometimes we think that worship is just about singing our hymns or kind of saying our prayers or going to church, and of course all those things are great examples of worship, but worship can be so much more. How we live our faith can in itself be an act of worship. Let's have a look at our feasts for the week and we'll see just how they fit in. So on Monday we had the dedication of the Basilicas of St. Peter and Paul. So these are the big churches in Rome. We had a dedication of the Lateran Basilica a couple of weeks ago, and these are just a reminder of when these places became holy places of worship, when they kind of were dedicated to the saints that inspire people to worship there. And of course the big basilica at St. Peter's and St. Peter's Square, where we often see the Pope, these are places where loads of people go to worship. And they're a reminder that place is important. We need to sometimes come together to special places like our schools or our parishes or basilicas, if you've got one knocking around, to worship, because it's nice and important part of our faith to be together to praise God. When we go through the week though, we start to see a couple of other people. The next saint's feast that we hit is St. Elizabeth of Hungary. Now she was an incredible woman. She was married very early and then widowed very early, but the money that her marriage kind of left her with, rather than spend it on loads of really nice fancy stuff, she built a hospital and just worked in it herself. And even though she was a princess, because she was an actual princess, she knew that the best way for her to worship God was to serve the sick. Simple as that. So maybe we need to think about how we worship God just by the things we do for people. Moving on, during the week we hit Saint Cecilia. Saint Cecilia is one of my favourite saints of all time because she is the patron saint of musicians. As a musician myself and as someone who loves singing, I find it super easy to worship when it comes to singing. In fact, I sometimes prefer to praise and give worship when I'm making music or playing my guitar. You guys will know what a massive part music plays in all of your lives, whether religious or not, and Saint Cecilia is the patron saint of that. So particularly if you're thinking of confirmation names or thinking of people to look up to or to ask to pray for, if you're a musician or you like music, Saint Cecilia is your woman. She's really, really awesome. But what you see is kind of through service, through music, through coming together, lots of different ways of worshipping. And then of course the big feast this week is the presentation of Our Lady. It was a bit like a baptism back in the day where a family would take and say thank you to God for the gift of their child. This weekend is actually the baptism of my son. So it's a massive deal, and I'm really going to give thanks to God and kind of sing and give worship for the fact that he's given me the most incredible gift in all of the world in the form of my baby boy. And that's so cool, but it's so nice to think that actually worship was part of Mary and Joseph's lives when their parents would have dedicated them, but of course part of Jesus' life as well. That he would have gone to worship with his family, he would have seen worship be part of their experience in their lives. This week, think about how you worship. Think about what you worship and the ways in which worship works for you, and then maybe find a way to give worship, not necessarily through the obvious ways, but maybe through song or through service, or just giving thanks to God for the incredible things that you've been given. After this week, we have our last week of the year, and then we hit the Feast of Christ the King, and that is, just a bit of a spoiler alert, National Youth Sunday. If you've not checked it out already, you can check out the National Youth Sunday resources at www.nationalyouthsunday.com. There's a special act of worship and stuff there that you can use in your schools and in your homes and in your parishes. And of course, if in the Nottingham Diocese you have not registered for our National Youth Fun Day, our live streamed interactive schools event on the 22nd of November, then head to ndcys.com/funday just to help you guys get registered and get involved with what's going to be an incredible online mashup, meetup of lots of different people. That of course starts with a whole diocesan act of worship, and we're hopefully going to all come together with schools and parishes to mark how awesome and important young people are to the church. This week, don't forget you're awesome and important, and don't forget to give worship, because God is deserving of our worship, and we've got so much to be grateful and thankful for. As always, leave your comments in the box. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell icon, and we will see you soon.